Hi, thank you all for coming. Today we are talking about bugs. So it should actually be a fairly quick presentation. It says we've got 19 slides, but most of them are pictures. So hopefully we can just knock it out, get it done, and it should be great. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the present button here. All right, bugs. Welcome, welcome. Bugs are the largest grouping of life on the planet. If you're looking at taxonomies and families of different living organisms, bugs are the largest by far. Like just any animal. Um, just think if you are looking in an ant hill, how there are hundreds of ants just in one ant hill, and you can have however many different ant hills in one yard, and multiply that one yard by however many yards are in a neighborhood, by how many yards are in a state, in a country. And so it's there are a lot. Gnats are also a very, very large grouping of a subcategory of bugs. Gnats, you will find a lot of mosquitoes. So spiders, of course, too. Um, there are lots of bugs on the planet. So, the largest grouping of life on the planet. And I think a lot of times they kind of get taken for granted. You don't always see them where they are, but there are a lot of them and they are everywhere. So, um, they, of course, are great for the ecosystem because they are a great source of food for other animals. They also are, they can take out other insects as well, some of the more peskier ones. But otherwise, they also get eaten by, all sorts of different animals, birds, and fish, what have you. So they are very important in the ecosystem. We can kind of split the bugs into different groupings, like beneficial insects. These ones are for pollinating. You'll see a lot, the butterflies and bees. Um, so they are great for pollinating. We also have ones that are great for aerating the soil, and those might include worms and ants. We do need aeration in the soil because it helps with water flow. So that way we don't, um, you know, bog our plants. We don't drown them. They have that proper drainage, so that way everything stays safe and um, and continues to thrive and grow. So the bugs help with that, and that's very important. So we also have bugs that perhaps are not necessarily beneficial to specific plants, especially when we are trying to control them. They, of course, are a part of the ecosystem for a reason. So they are, again, food sources and things like that. Biodiversity is important even in bugs. Um, but these ones are kind of seen more as pests. If you are trying to grow something mindfully and they keep eating them or are um, they are becoming invasive and using your plants as shelter, a place to lay their eggs, have babies. So they are just known to be general pests. And these are aphids, caterpillars. Caterpillars, I know I used to love caterpillars growing up, and of course they turn into butterflies, which we saw on the previous page, 2 pages back. So they are very, uh, they are beneficial, obviously, but they do eat leaves too. So we want to be mindful of that. So spiders, and these are actually spider mites. They can also get on your, this is actually a cherry tomato that these were photographed on. So they can get into your plants as well. Other pests, these ones you can find in the home, and they can be kind of pesky. They're moths. Moths are known for, um, leaving mothballs for potentially eating fabrics. It can be moth eaten if it's older and has been neglected. The moths can kind of nibble on fabrics, especially a lot of the natural fabrics. Ladybugs are also pests just because they can be very invasive. I know here in Minnesota, you can find hundreds of them in your house by the windows, and I think we have one down on the lampshade in our basement right now, which is definitely not as bad as it's been. Um, but they can get to be very numerous, very, very easily. And then they just kind of hang out, and you'll find all of them dead in a window at some point. Um, so they can be pesky. Centipedes also, you can find them in the home, especially in damp areas. We'll find them in the basement and in the showers, the bathrooms, where water can kind of hangs out. And a lot of people don't like them because obviously sang is French, and but I'm sure it's also Latin, and peds legs, 100 legs. So they some people don't like that. Um, but you can find them in the home, and a lot of people don't like finding bugs in the house. So those are pesky. Also, other bugs in the house that can be a little bit pestilent um, include spiders. They will oftentimes find their way in. Especially in Minnesota during the winter, they will want to find a warm place, a safe place, and the house is a perfect option. So these are the ones that I actually found in my basement when I was cleaning the basement. So they are actually they're pretty big, kind of spindly legged, but you can find all sorts of different spiders in the house too. So this is just one example. Box elders are kind of like the ladybugs that just show up. They don't necessarily do anything, but they congregate in vast numbers, vast quantities. As you can see on this rock, it's just exorbitant. The sheer number of these beetles that you can just find, and they are like the ladybugs, where you will oftentimes just find them all dead in a place, after their season is done. Um, they just multiply, multiply, multiply. But they are beautiful, of course, too. The coloring, much like the ladybugs, the red and the black. So houseflies can also be a bit of a nuisance, because they can get into things. If they get into the food or onto the food, you want to be conscientious of that because they can nibble, they can leave babies. And so you want to be mindful of that. Also, fruit flies, which I do not have a photo of. They are smaller, but they can grow and munch on the food also, poop on the food also. So those are also pests around the house. And that kind of is a good segue into bugs that are associated with disease. And this is again here in Minnesota, these are the big ones that we've got. This is a traditional wood tick. This one you will see in Minnesota woods. Um, Fairly regularly, and they do clasp onto the skin and they bury their heads in the skin. You'll find them on any animals, your dogs. They do have like tick collars and things with middling results. They've got drugs that you pour onto your dogs as well, like liquids that are supposed to repel bugs, but they don't always work. Sometimes efficacy is questionable, but um, this is a traditional wood tick. This one actually has a necklace on. You can kind of see it. And so that means that this one is a female. The males wear suspenders. I love telling people that because a lot of people are afraid of wood ticks if they're not outdoors people, because they do bury their head in, and there is a chance that the head may become infected if it gets stuck in the skin, because oftentimes you will pull the wood tick off. If you find it, you're gonna pull the wood tick off, and it's just one of those scary stories, that the head can be left in because it's clasping, in the skin so well. And so, I mean, generally you'll use tweezers. Previously there was an old wives' tale that you can cover the back end, because if it has its head in the skin, it was thought that it would breathe or take in oxygen from the butt, the back of the wood tick. So for first aid, you would put Vaseline on the back end of the wood tick, so that way it couldn't breathe. So it had to relinquish its grasp on the skin. And so the head would come out after a certain period of time because it had to let go. It needed to breathe. But most first aid manuals will say not to do that, just in case of infection or things like that. You can just remove them with tweezers most of the time. So, um, this is a deer tick. It is much smaller. You can see this, the wood tick is probably maybe a quarter the size of a dime, if approximately. And the deer tick, this is a finger. This is my finger. I have a relatively large finger. Um, but it's exceptionally smaller, and they get very, very small. So this is a deer tick. You can't see the definition of the legs very well in this photo, and I do apologize for that. But it is comparable to the wood tick. And both the wood ticks and deer ticks are prone to the potential for Lyme's disease, for passing on Lyme's disease as a potential health problem. So, and Lyme's disease can be potentially dangerous, um, especially if it is left untreated, where sometimes you can get stiffness, red skin, and it can also lend itself to fatigue, um, and sun sensitivity. Um, so you want to be conscientious of that. Oftentimes, if you do, especially with deer ticks, um, if you do get bitten, and if it is attached, you want to draw a bullseye where it was, especially if there's a red mark, because the sign of Lyme's disease is a bullseye. So you'll probably have a red mark, and sometimes it's just itchy like a bug bite when you get that red mark. There is going to be a red mark, probably, depending, but it just generally happens that you will generally get like a red mark where it has attached. But but you want to draw a bullseye with some sort of pen or marker and just keep track, because if that circle expands, if the red expands past the the original circle, that is an indicator that you might have Lyme's disease. And there is a potential for another red ring around that first ring, and that's the bullseye. And so that's what you are looking for as an indicator that you potentially have Lyme's. Otherwise, the other symptoms um, do include fatigue and perhaps the sun sensitivity um, and other things like that. So those ones are big ones to keep your eyes open for in Minnesota. We also have mosquitoes, and of course, mosquitoes in Africa lend themselves to malaria. We do not have malaria outbreaks in the United States. One of the more recent ones in the United States is West Nile disease, and that actually can lead to sterility, where you are unable to have children. Um, so you want to be mindful of that. I think it was primarily down south, when it first broke out. I think there have been, a few miscellaneous cases in other, moving north, of course, as things are prone to move and change as time progresses. But these are the big ones. And of course, you do still want to watch for the flies, the house flies, fruit flies on the food because that can cause, foodborne illnesses as well. So just be conscientious of that. So what do bugs eat? Bugs actually, of course, it depends on what kind of bug it is. Obviously, some are bloodsuckers. I didn't actually write blood on this, but like mosquitoes, they drink blood. The wood ticks go for blood as well, and it actually fills up their back ends. And so they might turn a different color. Um, and expand. And that means that they've probably been attached for a while. Sometimes you'll see them in their big white things, so you want to keep your eyes open for that. But they might actually eat blood. Other bugs. This is an example of a spider nest or a web, pardon me, that caught a bunch of bugs that were attracted to a light that I had on. And so the spider's going to be eaten good with all of these bugs. So they can feed other bugs. Um, but otherwise, they might eat bacteria like in the soil, fungi in the soil. It really depends on how big the bugs are too. A lot of them can get very, 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 very small, like the deer tick, and smaller. They could eat the bacteria, the fungi, decaying or dead things. Um, a lot of them are, that is one of their primary roles is to help. In an ecosystem is to help decay things that are dead, like leaves and animals, and then they release those nutrients into the soil, and that replenishes that soil health. So they are very important in that scenario. Leaves, they might eat leaves, like in the case of that pesky caterpillar and other plants too. So it really depends on what kind of bug that you're looking at. But all sorts of different things. And where do they live? That is also varied quite a bit by the species, who they are, and how they move, and that's going to be on the next couple slides, I think. But there is dirt in the soil. They can live underground. You have ants that live underground, worms that live underground. You've got some bees actually build nests underground. So, you've got all sorts of different things that do live in the earth. Webs, those spiders will live in webs. They can find them in the trees, and these are actually bug patterns after the bark was stripped away. You will also find a good number. I have a memory, particularly, I was sitting by a tree. I was picking up garbage, I think, in a neighborhood, and I sat down and I was just, you know, I think I was picking up garbage still. Maybe there was like broken glass or something, but I looked over and this tree was just covered in ants. And I was so surprised. Just under the bark, it was this amazing community of ants. So I was just flabbergasted. I had not seen that many ants on the tree, kind of like under the bark before. It was amazing. So, but trees, and that's you'll see that. Yeah, that's another thing about like dead trees too. They're great for homes for bugs, which means that they're great for shelters for birds and squirrels. But birds will eat the bugs out of the trees. And you'll see like woodpeckers, obviously, literally will peck, peck, peck into the bark to help themselves to those bugs. So trees are a big one for particular insects. And then also the detritus, you'll see them in the decaying matter from years previous. So these are dead leaves. Um, and they use those to lay eggs. They use those as protection from extreme weather. Like in Minnesota, they will use the leaves to protect themselves from winter. Also there are nests and hives. Unfortunately, I do not have any pictures of those right now. Um, but nests and hives are ones that you'll see hornets and bees as well. And they're all, of course, very different. There are so many different types of insects, and a lot of them move in different ways. And so I wasn't able, of course, to share all of the bugs that I had been studying, but there are a number of ones that I can share. And so I kind of categorize them by how they move. And we have bugs that fly, that kind of slide. I wasn't sure on that verbiage because I wanted to say crawl, but oh no, that was walking. Walking, I wanted to say crawling. Sliding was the one, like, should I say scooch? They kind of scooch. I was thinking worms and like slugs. I'll show you, but flying bugs, sliding bugs, walking bugs, and jumping bugs are just a few categories of bugs. And here are some photos, some examples of them. So the flying, I wanted to share so many flying photos. We got beetles. I believe this is a male mosquito. Fun fact, only female mosquitoes drink blood. Um, this is a dragonfly, butterfly, a beetle. This is not a good picture, but I had to share it because I was so excited that I found it. And of course, because I was so excited, I'm sure my photo just is not great. But it's one of the bugs that looks like a leaf. It's this cute green little thing. So those are flying bugs. Sliding bugs. There's this tiny little worm. And I was trying not to duplicate photos, so that's why I didn't pull the photo of the worms from the pest page, because I wanted them to be all new, but th those worms would have been on here as well. And then I found this guy. Generally, I think this is just like a basic slug, um, because I picked it up and there was just slime on the bottom, and you could tell there was a bug in there. But normally you associate those with water nearby, ideally. And this was just in a backyard. So, of course, they had sprinklers, and so I mean, I think it was on cement that was not exposed to the light, and so if there was moisture, it probably would have been held on to longer, and so it was just stuck on there. But it was cool to see. I love seeing the shells of those ones. Um, Walking bugs. I wasn't sure. Originally, I said I wanted to say crawling, but really they're just walking. They're not creepy crawlers. They're just walking with their 4 legs, 8 legs, 100 legs, or whatever. So, spiders will walk. We called these roly bugs when I was growing up, these second ones, roly bugs. And I just thought this spider was very beautiful, especially on the contrasting colored pencil where it was found. So I had to share that one just because it was so pretty. And it is a walker, so. And then ants, of course, too. So also jumping bugs. We have jumping spiders. There are also grasshoppers. I did not have a picture of a cricket. I would have shared a picture of a cricket, but there are all sorts of different ones that exist, and they're the largest grouping of living beings. And so there's no way I could fit all of the photos on this presentation. But it is pretty cool to look into and to see all the different varieties and how colorful they can get. And sometimes they say that the color is um, correlated to its level of poisonousness, poisonousness. And sometimes that can be false too. I know that I read that the monarch butterfly, I'm going to go back to the monarch butterfly for a second. It was of course, on one of the first pages, but the monarch butterfly doesn't, I've heard that it does not taste good to predators at all because it eats milkweed, and that's one of its biggest food sources, milkweed, 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 which is why they want you to have butterfly gardens because they are particular about what they eat, but they eat the milkweed, and there is a chemical in that milkweed that is poisonous to certain animals. And so if you eat this butterfly, you might feel sick. You might get sick, and so and it's bright, that brilliant orange. So that's like a warning, that color. But some other butterflies also due to evolution, potentially due to evolution, this is a theory, of course, but they also are this brilliant orange, and they might not just eat the milkweed, so they might not be poisonous, but it protects them and it keeps them safe because if an animal eats the monarch and gets sick or feels poorly, they're not going to want to eat another orange butterfly. And so the other butterflies that are orange will feel safer, be safer because they have that same camouflage, that same coloring as the monarch butterflies. So just a unique little something that you hear about bugs. Yeah, we'll get back to that. That there we go. Um, Yeah, so there are so many bugs, all unique, different colors, different shapes, different sizes, and it is astonishing. They are so fascinating, but they are also unique in that some of them go through a process called metamorphosis, and some of them don't. So we have, of course, two different average or common life cycles. So you will have egg, larva, pupa, an adult, or egg nymph to adults. Um, so some of them do go through like a metamorphosis where they cannot fly, like caterpillars to butterflies. Dragonflies also go through a metamorphosis process, and they will shed much of their bodies, and then have wings and then they can fly. So it's really unique. You'll read stories about how, they're this caterpillar and or this larva or what have you. Um, and our pupa, I suppose. Um, and they go into what I'm presuming this middle picture is here. And of course, I apologize. These photos were actually taken out in nature. They're not my bugs. And I'm not an expert in this field, so I do not know all of the bugs. I do not know everything about all of the bugs. I'm not an expert. And so I just thought that these structures were very interesting. Um, because I saw them around and they are kind of unique. And so I wanted to share these photos, but I'm not 100% sure which are egg sacs, which might be just like almost housing or shelters, or if they are going through, which ones are going through metamorphosis, or if they have covered themselves for burial. I just don't know because I'm not an expert and I haven't seen all of the life cycles of all of the bugs. And so, so this was just unique, just interesting things. But I've heard that they will go into um, their cocoons and they will literally turn into slime and then rearrange their entire bodies and come out after as a butterfly, as a dragonfly, and that is the most amazing process. And like, how many other animals or creatures can do that? It's such an amazing scientific um, process to be one thing and then just turn to goop halfway through and then turn into this other thing. It's just so it seems so wild. So it's very interesting. Um as well as laying eggs, and some spiders will hold the egg sacs on their backs, and um so there are different processes for different bugs of how they live, how they die, and what happens in between. And so I just wanted to share these photos because I thought they were interesting and a little bit about the metamorphosis process. Bug anatomy. And these are very basic just because depending on what the bug is, it's going to be it could be pretty intricate. Obviously, they're very small and they have a lot of moving parts, moving elements. So, um, these are simplified bug anatomy, ants and spiders, um, simplified ant anatomy. Most of them actually do have something in common where they have the three parts where you have the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And a lot of the bugs, you can see them expressly, like they are articulated in such a way that you can tell, okay, that's the head, there's the middle bit, that's the thorax, and then the back end is the abdomen. And in some bugs, the abdomen is much larger, and we'll see that. I've got a few different slides with other bugs that have abdomens that are exceptionally large. But starting with the ants, you can see the three segments of their body. Their legs are also very highly segmented. They only have the six legs. They have huge antennae, and you can kind of see the mandible, the jaw. Humans have a jaw, and it's called a mandible as well. So that's a comparable thing amongst humans and bugs. A lot of the verbiage is reused. So also antenna. So let's see, simplified spider anatomy. We have again the different segments of the head, and then you can't see it as well on the spider here. You can see, you might even actually think those are the palps. So palps are the little, they're almost antenna-like, but they're by the mouth kind of, and they kind of help the spider eat. And so arguably it's part of the mandible. Um, but you can't really see it, but I had to write it down because it's very spidery. And so I wanted to have it represented on this spider anatomy diagram. But the palps are by the mouth, and they are potentially part of the mandible, and um, they look like little mouth antenna. But anyway, you can see the three parts: the head, the middle element, the thorax, and then the backside, the abdomen, and legs. And these, of course, you can see have 8 legs per traditional spider form. This is a grasshopper, basic grasshopper anatomy. So this also has the exact same three pieces. You've got the head up at the front, the thorax. It's not as well defined in this picture in particular. Um, so I do apologize for that. The thorax is kind of here's-ish, and then the abdomen go is like right by where the femur is labeled all the way back. So the abdomen is very long. Um, but so we've got head, thorax, abdomen. It has multiple legs, of course, and they are again segmented. That's traditional of of insects. They have those articulations in the legs. They have carapaces. They A lot of them are exoskeletons, so they have their skeleton on the outside of their bodies, which we do not have as human beings. Our bones are on the inside, but a lot of their structural elements are on the outside. They are like armor type. So that is exoskeleton, and that is the bugs. A lot of bugs will have that. So, um, but anyway, and that I believe there was a label on one of the diagrams I was looking at when I created this one, that said a carapace was specifically in like the shoulder area here along the thorax. So, but um, but the articulated legs, you have the femur, and then instead of having a tibia and a fibula in the leg, it's just the tibia, and then you have the tarsus. Again, these are pulling directly from human anatomy terms. We have a tibia as well, tarsus, like metatarsus, and so those are in our like would what would be in our feet. We don't have claws, little fingernails, but and again the mandible up by the face, very large eyes, kind of by where it says head here on the diagram, and then the very long antenna. Wings are hard to see on this, but they are there along the abdomen there. So basic grasshopper, butterflies and mayflies. This is the butterfly, and their wings are obviously out. So we've got the head here. Again, the three parts, the head, the thorax. This one you can't see the differentiation at all because the color blends in. So, but you have the head up at the top, thorax in the middle, abdomen down the length of the wings. We have antenna, which again, also you can't necessarily see in this photo. I do apologize for that. We have the forewing, and that's some do not necessarily have quite the same variations in how the wings are formed, but this particular one does have this forewing up at the top, and then the hind wing, hind wing, I would say hind wing, is just that secondary section of wing, which is at the bottom of the wing. So pretty cool. They're simple. Again, just the three parts, head, thorax, abdomen, head, thorax, abdomen. Same here with the mayfly. We have the head here. The thorax is kind of the shoulder area. And then the abdomen is the long tail element there. So this one you can see the wings here, and it's cool. You can see there are actually two sets of wings. You can see the large wings, and those are the forewings, and you also have smaller wings kind of tucked in with the larger wings. I don't know if you can see my pointer here, but that is I'm circling the hind wing there. But otherwise, you've got the antenna there, legs there. And then a lot of the legs are segmented, and they will, like we saw on the grasshopper, so they are segmented into like femur, tibia, and then the tarsus and potential claws. So I didn't write that on every single one. This butterfly, you can't see the legs, but just to simplify it, it was just legs there, abdomen, hind wing, and then two tails. Some of them have three tails, and this might not be a technical term, but it is a working term, and we're keeping it simple on these today. So, um, just basic stuff. Mayflies. That is it for the presentation. So again, not too long, just a little tidbit, just an introductory type. Let me know what you think. If are there any questions? All right, thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll see you for the next presentation.